ones. Yeah. Okay. That started great. Yep. We're ready.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. So nice to see all your cheery faces there via Zoom. Thank you, Zoom. I call the meeting of May 12th, 2020 to order. And I'd like to call on Member Sean Noonan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Member Noonan. Please, once again, I'd like to begin our meeting with a moment of silence in honor of those that are fighting this pandemic and for those who have lost their battle. So if we could do a moment of silence, please. As we turn to invocation this morning, I invite Member Ashley Selman to share her reflection with us. Member Selman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While we've all had our share of bad news over the past few weeks, I wanted to take this time to celebrate a District 1 resident who can bring us all some inspiration for today's meeting. Last Wednesday, Mr. Jonathan Davila, an otherwise healthy 30-year-old dad from Addison, was released from Elmhurst Hospital after his battle with COVID-19. After 44 days, which at times required intubation and dialysis, Mr. Davila was reunited with his wife and 3 children, no longer needing oxygen or dialysis. Mr. Davila was celebrated as he left the hospital on his way to a rehabilitation facility to continue his recovery, as doctors, nurses, and medical staff clapped and cheered his recovery. Mr. Davila's story and the celebration shown by some of Dupage County's own health workers reminds us that even during these difficult times, we could celebrate recovery, the helpers, and a family reunited just in time for Mother's Day. Let us close with a brief moment of silence to honor the 4,770 known Dupage County residents who have been diagnosed with COVID-19, especially the 252 members of our community who have lost their lives. Let's also pause to thank our healthcare workers, our first responders, and our essential workers who are risking their safety for all of us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Member Selman. Pursuant to the Governor's executive order, I will entertain a motion to permit the members of the board attending by telephone to participate and to vote in the meeting, and then we will take our roll call. So is there someone that, Member Larsson, are you seeking recognition?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we just need a motion and a second to conduct our
So
meeting.
move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay, the ayes have it. Mr. Clerk, Adam Johnson, would you be kind enough to take the roll?
Chaplain.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Here.
Covert.
Here.
Desart.
Here.
DeCiani.
Here.
Eckhoff.
Here.
Elliott.
Here.
Hart.
Here.
Healy. Healy.
I don't see him.
Krajewski.
Here.
Larsson.
Here.
Noonan.
Here.
Ozog.
Here.
Pachowski.
Here.
Renahan. Rutledge.
Here.
Selman.
Here.
Tornatori.
Here.
Zay.
Here.
Should we wait a moment here for Mr. Healy? He was on the screen moments ago, wasn't he?
Mr. Pachowski's having difficulty getting on the screen too.
Oh boy, it's always someone.
Usually Healy. Kidding.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, Ashley. 44 days, Elmhurst Hospital. The treating physician is a friend of mine, Phil Cozy, who live around the corner from us. His kids went to school with my kids, yeah.
It's such an inspirational story because we hear so much that people our age don't get COVID, and we can hear that, of course you can get it if you're younger, but you can have a recovery, and it's very exciting to see the happy stories too.
Except some of the recovery material there was an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, and then Mayo Clinic put out some podcast about the long-term effects.
Yes.
Which are really frightening. Even
especially
when
people my age, they're saying that even though it probably won't kill someone my age, you could have lung kidney fertility issues in some men I've seen. So it's dangerous for all of us. Yeah, we all got to be careful.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Is Healy here? Where is he? We're going to move on in a moment here if he doesn't show up.
Come here.
Is that a motion? I'll move to move on without Member Healy.
Well, we're going to have to seek leave of the body if he shows up.
Finally been
later.
silenced.
This is the original roll call. So, okay, well, maybe he had some emergency. So I guess we'll move on. On the order of Chairman's report, I do have some comments, if I may please offer to you. In Finance Committee today, you heard about how the county's operations and finances have been impacted by COVID-19. I think it's important to take a moment and reflect on how this order impacts us all. Allow me, please, to thank our employees, many of whom are on the front lines, dealing with people who are ill, who are grieving, afraid, or angry. I wrote a note of encouragement the other day to our senior services staff because the population they work with is uniquely impacted by the crisis. And I know that it's been heavy down there in senior services. But I also wanted to give a thanks to our care center employees, of course, our health department and public safety employees, and our Office of Homeland Security, collecting and passing out PPE to keep our first responders safe. As the crisis wears on, and I'm mindful of the fact that it certainly does require stamina, it's important for our employees to know we deeply appreciate their efforts. I also appreciate the many folks who've written and called asking about our plans to reopen Dupage County businesses. I've been working with public health experts, local mayors, and Choose Dupage to put together a thoughtful, I think, and deliberative plan that is guided by best business practices, best public health practices and recommendations, and important hospital data. Additionally, I've been immersed in talks with the governor, the chairs of Cook and the Collar counties, and I'm serving on Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's regional task force to reopen business. So recognizing the broad powers the governor has to manage state emergencies, I wanted to assure you, and I invite you to share your thoughts with me. We are working with leaders across the region, working with the governor, and we are advocating for our community's businesses to be open responsibly and in a manner that is coordinated with all these partners. When this can safely be achieved based on the latest health data and local hospital activity and capacity. I also recognize we must be able to manage our affairs and our economy responsibly over the next several months, as we do not have a vaccine for COVID-19. In conversation with regional leaders, we agree that each county is different, but that reopening efforts throughout our region should be coordinated and will be part of a collaboration. As I lead our process, know that we will do what is best for Dupage County and what is best for the region. I've said it countless times, I think, on these conference calls, what's best for the region, what's best for Chicago is good for Dupage, and what's good for Dupage is good for Chicago. To that end, I ask for your support today for the Small Business Relief Program, which will provide operating grants to Dupage's small businesses struggling through the economic shutdown. Choose Dupage, our economic development partner, will administer the program with local banks. Choose Dupage will conduct a webinar on Friday, educating our community about the process. We believe we can make an immediate impact and get these much needed funds into the hands of some local employers who desperately need help. Finally, I'll conclude with an interesting workaround we've created during this public health crisis. There you go. Dave Roberts is a Navy veteran who works in our IT department. He recognized that due to the stay-at-home order, we can't hold our annual Memorial Day ceremony. Dave and our GIS team created an electronic interactive memorial at www.dupageco.org/memorial. This webpage on our Dupage County site allows friends and family to create their own honor posts, we're calling them, placing the name, hometown, military affiliation, photos, and remembrances of Dupage men and women who lost their lives in service of our country. We invite the community to visit this site, post memories and photos, share stories, and learn a bit about some of our nation's Memorial Day history. While we may not be able to gather in person this year, we are united in our desire to honor Dupage men and women who gave their lives while serving as members of the U.S. Armed Forces. That web page again is dupageco.org/memorial. It's linked from the front page of our website and the Veterans Assistance Commission page. We will share all the information this week so folks have time to take a look at it. So I think that concludes my report, my remarks. I wanted to ask Karen Ayala, who I know all of you have been interacting with and communicating with, and she's been just awesome. I don't think an hour goes by that I don't talk to her on the phone about something. But in any event, Karen, our Executive Director of Dupage County Health Department, was going to give us a report today. Karen?
Thank you, Chairman Cronin. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great. And thank you to all members of the county board for this opportunity. I believe you're seeing just a very brief PowerPoint slide that will provide the framework for my comments today. And I would also like to thank Dr. Rashmi Chugh and Chris Hoff for joining me in this presentation. So to get started, I'd like to set the context of testing capacity in order to all three diagnose, identify, and report cases. As you may be aware, the U.S. yesterday announced that we are up to 1,324,488 cases across the United States and are ominously close to 80,000 deaths, as the death count stands at 79,756. In Illinois, we have 79,007 positive cases, combined with 3,459 deaths, and a total of 442,425 tests performed across the state. In Dupage County, we have 4,770 cases that are lab confirmed, and as Member Selman and Chairman both identified, we have 252 deaths to Dupage County residents. When we look at ethnic, racial, and age trends in our cases within Dupage. And again, these are all lab confirmed cases. So this is not the total number of cases, but these are the lab confirmed cases. We see that when it comes to ethnicity, cases are disproportionately impacting our Latinx populations, with 838.6 per 100,000 cases identified in the Latinx populations of Dupage, compared to 198.9 per 100,000 for non-Latinos, and an average of 427.7. When looking at ethnicity, when it concerns mortality or death data, however, the proportion of Latinx deaths are 1.5 times lower than the other groups that we compare them to. When we look at racial breakdown, we see that cases are disproportionately impacting Black and African American population, with the case rates being 2.4 times higher than white residents in our Black and African American population, and 1.7 times higher than Asian American populations. Case rates across age groups are higher in Black population, and concerningly, mortality rates are 1.9 times higher in Black and African American populations than in white, and 4.6 times higher than our Asian American counterparts. We have heard increasingly, and thank you to Member Chaplain for bringing this information first to our attention, of the concerning constellation of symptoms which have now been categorized or defined as pediatric multisystem inflammatory syndrome, which we're convinced is somehow related to COVID-19 in the pediatric population. But we are certainly working to understand the interactions and the comorbidities. This syndrome is a Kawasaki-like presentation in children, and we understand it will soon be a reportable disease in Illinois. In calls with our local healthcare providers, we wanted to let you know that they have seen cases consistent with this syndrome in our local and regional area. When we look at the percentage of children who are impacted by COVID-19, again, these are the lab confirmed cases. We see that overall, the percentage of DuPage County cases for persons under the age of 20 is below 4%. It stands at 3.8%. Even with that, however, I think it's important to understand that there have been hospitalizations amongst this pediatric population, and that we have nearly 200 cases. We stand at 175 total cases in individuals who are DuPage residents who are younger than 20 years of age. The final point regarding the data around cases is that the highest percentage of mortality or deaths to DuPage County residents, it has been consistently at 70% or above, are occurring to residents in our long-term care facilities. However, we do see continuing deaths tragically to individuals who are living in the community as well. So that's a little bit about our testing efforts and where we stand on testing. I'd now like to move into tracking, because we've certainly heard over the past few weeks the importance of case investigation and contact tracing. The number of COVID positive cases currently has far exceeded the annual total reports for communicable diseases already this year when compared to last year's counts in Dupage County. Last year, we had between 3,500 and 4,000 total communicable disease cases that were managed by our communicable disease and epidemiology staff. And if you remember, we are now standing at 4,700 COVID positive cases in Dupage. To respond to this need, the Dupage County Health Department has expanded our CDEPI staff capacity by adding 2 physician medical consultants and by cross-training and up-training 50 other Dupage County Health Department staff to assist primarily with case interviews and close contact identification. That work has averaged over 150 new reports a day. A reminder, each case interview requires approximately 60 to 90 minutes with that person. And at that time, disease dates and information, potential contact with others, education and prevention information are all provided, as well as an assessment of needs for housing, food, any other kind of medication or mental health needs. The contact tracing follows the case interview, and that involves reaching out to all individuals who this case may have come into contact with, and requires even more resources, both from an infrastructure technology standpoint as well as human resources. We are looking forward to expanding our contact tracing work in the upcoming weeks as we anticipate both guidance and resources to be coming from the Illinois Department of Public Health. The models that we have seen indicate that for a population size of Dupage County, it would require 69 case interview staff, 342 contact notification staff, and 519 individuals to provide contact follow-up and to assure that those individuals are linked with the appropriate resources and care needed. Individuals who are identified as cases, as a reminder, are required to isolate for at least 10 days, provided that they are afebrile without the use of anti-fever meds for 72 hours, and if they had symptoms, those are improving. Individuals who are identified as close contacts, which would include household members or individuals who have been within that the diameter of that individual closer than 6 feet for 10 or more minutes, are required to quarantine for 14 days and to closely monitor symptoms. When we look overall, and this will be important as we look at the reopening discussions, when we look at our overall positivity rate for cases, that's the number of tests that come back positive as a fraction over the total number of cases tests being submitted. We as a community and a county are holding steady around and it kind of ping pongs above and below the 20% line, but we are very close to that. When we look at treatment needs, which include the capacity to hospitalize patients who need inpatient care, we have identified in our weekly calls with our healthcare system partners that their consistent reports have been that health systems are able to manage the flow of COVID patients. However, they are able to do so based upon the work that they did to build up their capacity within their systems. Increasingly, hospital representatives have identified concerns with the acuity and severity of individual residents seeking care, both in terms of COVID conditions as well as other health conditions. And this has led to the development of a public awareness campaign that will be launched in the next week, encouraging people to not delay seeking medical care for any or all related health concerns. The final point, which speaks to our reopening and getting back a little bit to life as it was before, involves our work with local, regional, and state public health partners to provide recommendations for increasing social distances while protecting the health of our residents and the viability of our healthcare system. We continue working with the Illinois Attorney General's office and essential businesses to provide assurances to those essential employees that they are being adequately protected to reduce the spread of illness within those facilities. We are also working very closely with our long-term care facilities across Dupage County to limit or mitigate the spread of the virus. The biggest challenges for that population remain access to adequate PPE, personal protective equipment, as well as the broad community spread of illness impacting their vital workforce. With that, I would be happy to address any questions folks may have.
Okay, very good, Karen. So anyone have questions? I will recognize you. As you see there, it looks like Member Covert seeking recognition, followed by Member Dessart, followed by Member Chaplain.
Thank you, Karen, for that fine report. Just had a quick question about children being affected. Do we know of any reported deaths among young children?
Rashmi, are you on? We do not have any deaths to children within DuPage County. And Dr. Chug, I'm not sure if you have a perspective for the state. Which she apparently does not have. I do not believe. I know there was one infant in Chicago early on who was identified as who had tragically passed, who was potentially identified as COVID positive. However, later information and testing revealed that that was not the case.
Okay. Member Dessart?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have a question. I just have a comment, and that is that I applaud the DuPage County Health Department so highly. You guys are doing a wonderful job. Dr. Rashmi, Dennis Brennan updates us every single day about all the statistics in DuPage County. And Karen Ayala, not this Sunday, but the Sunday before, I had a constituent who is a staff member at a nursing home here in Naperville reach out to me about 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And I got on the phone right away with Karen Ayala, our executive director at the health department. And she picked up the phone at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and we got that issue resolved. So I just cannot applaud you enough, and thank you for all your hard work. I know you're working 24/7. And this DuPage County Health Department is amazing. And I applaud you. Thank you so much for all your work.
Oh, that's very, very kind. Thank you.
Very nice, Member Dessart. Member Chaplain?
I think you're on mute, Liz.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes,
That's
thank
right.
you so much. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Karen, for that great report. You and Dennis have been giving us the numbers every day, and I really appreciate that. But I really appreciate you bringing up that Kawasaki-like illness that we've seen in children. When COVID first came out, we were told that it doesn't affect children and that children are safe from it. And now we're seeing that some children, especially now New York, is seeing a lot of numbers. I think in the 70 kids now that they've either been hospitalized or they've come down with this Kawasaki-like illness weeks after they had COVID. Well, Kawasaki, as you all know, we do the proclamation every January. Kawasaki is prevalent in the spring. So it might make sense that somebody that's been sick with COVID comes down with a Kawasaki-like illness if their immune system is weak. I think it's really important that we push that the message out that children are not immune to this, and that children can get, very ill. And just like in the adults, like Ashley spoke eloquently about that 30-year-old man from Addison, if children do come down with Kawasaki or Kawasaki-like illness, and they're not treated properly and quickly, they can also have permanent damage to their heart and other internal organs. So I just really want to I hope you all will help and push that message out that, children are not immune, and some can become hip complications such as Kawasaki-like disease after they get COVID.
Okay, thank you. Member Larsson seeking recognition, followed by Member Renahan.
Just very briefly, obviously, the Board of Health will be meeting on Thursday evening at 6:15. We do the same sort of thing. Our own member Tori is the president of the board, and we encourage everybody to check in on what we're doing at the health department and the Board of Health and overseeing these issues, because we get additional great information at that time, and the public can check in on our meetings the same way they do these meetings.
Thanks, Bob. Member Renahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ditto, Karen and your group, absolutely amazing job doing what you can do during this time. My question is nursing homes. Obviously, they've been hit more so than other areas. Is there a requirement that our Dupage County Health Department is pushing out in terms of testing, how often people should be tested? I know I've gotten some concerns.
Yeah, so at this point, we're working with the Illinois Department of Public Health to identify and establish the testing guidelines. It is a balance that long-term care facilities must weigh between testing employees and maintaining their ongoing business and ability to provide for their individuals. So I know we have moved from test everybody all at once to identifying 25% of your staff at a time, perhaps 25% of your staff every 2 weeks, that we are looking to as kind of the new model. But again, these are very preliminary, and kind of to Member Chaplain's point too, when we say this is a novel virus, I think it's really easy to say, okay, I get it. However, it is every one of these situations that the novelty of this virus confounds our response and provides additional complexities to how we move forward. And so I would like to personally express our public health appreciation for the leadership of Chairman Cronin in making sure that in any discussion, it is the public health concerns that lead our discussion and our decisions going forward, because I am saddened and informed on an increasing perspective that those are not the kinds of, that's not the kind of leadership that's happening across the state. So I very much appreciate you, Chairman Cronin.
Thanks, Karen. I see that Don Pachowski, Member Pachowski, was seeking recognition.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My question is, if we have 74% of these cases in senior homes and facilities, what are we doing that's special or unique to that group or that population? Because that is alarming. And is testing sufficient, or is there other things that can be done for these seniors in these facilities?
Testing is sufficient. I would say the one, we don't have any antiviral medication. We don't have a vaccine. So the one thing that we do have, the two things that we do have are testing and making sure that people, if they test positive, are isolated. The other is appropriate levels of personal protective equipment. And I would say across all of our healthcare systems, they are still, including long-term care, and probably more so in long-term care, they are being required to use their PPE, so their face masks, their gloves, their gowns, in more of a conservation mode compared to what is the best practice for infection control. And so every opportunity that we get, somebody reaches out for wants to make a donation for PPE. We divert those resources to our long-term care facilities. The other intervention that we encourage every long-term care facility is the at least daily and much more frequently in facilities where they have widespread disease, a review and close clinical monitoring of vital signs, fever, pulse oximetry. We've been hearing, in the popular media about people showing up with dangerously low levels of oxygen in their bodies. And meanwhile, they don't even seem to be impacted. They don't realize it. And so the folks, residents in long-term care facilities, even more so, they're so incredibly fragile that they can go from being relatively healthy to critically ill within hours. And so it is that frequent monitoring, the building the capacity of the long-term care facilities to implement infection control practices, and then really providing them with the equipment that they need.
Very good, Karen. I see Jim Zay was seeking recognition, followed by Mr. DeCiani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Karen. My question is, are still in Dupage, I know we don't have an Illinois Department of Public Health site set up for testing. So who's being tested? Is it still only people by doctor's orders or people who have had exposure to someone that has COVID-19?
Those are the primary ones being tested at doctor's offices and who present at emergency rooms. However, just east of our border at the Aurora Outlet Mall, there's a community-based testing site that has been opened, that is opened for any individual, regardless of symptoms. And that's probably the closest testing site that we have.
And do you know how many they're doing a day there at Aurora still?
My understanding is that their max was going to be 750 a day, but they have had to reduce that to closer to 600, and that the demand for tests far outstrips the availability of those tests.
Okay, and if a Dupage resident goes there and tests positive or negative, then that information is sent to you at the health department?
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. DeCiani. Sounds good right now.
Oops, you're still on mute.
There we go.
Yep.
Karen, I think you're doing a great job. Your department, your staff, all the reports I'm getting from the hospitals, DuPage County is really on top of things, and we appreciate your leadership. I have two questions. One is regarding testing, and the second one would be regarding hospital stays. The first one regarding testing, do we have a plan, given the state hasn't given any of their new locations to DuPage, do we have a plan to do testing either through a third party, but kind of county driven versus waiting for the state to jump on this? And I'm thinking of the antibody testing, which would hopefully give people confidence that they've either had the virus and or if they haven't, that they safety, they use best practices to protect themselves. And also, too, possibly a partnership with our blood banks to, if they've had the virus, be able to use their blood that has the antibody to help treat this until we have a vaccine. So kind of have been multiple, multifaceted approach here. Is any plan in the works for this?
Sure. So to your first question, the testing, and what we'd be looking at least at this point, is testing for the presence of infection currently in people. The antibody tests are still a ways away from our understanding. We can do them. We can detect the virus in the blood, the presence or the the presence of the virus in the blood, but we don't know what that means yet. We don't know if that means you have lifelong immunity, that we don't know if it means you have 2 weeks of immunity. So we're not looking at pushing those tests, but we do think that there's some benefit in providing residents with more access to the point of care testing. Again, we want to make sure we have lessons learned that we can use from these other sites, and it would absolutely have to be, to be very candid, it would have to be a third party because our resources are extended fully at this point. We are looking at perhaps a more regional approach because, again, we are one of the west suburbs, but not the only western suburbs. So we are exploring those opportunities, yes.
And then the second part of my question is on the hospital stays. I noticed the report that Dennis sends out daily is great, and over a third of our ICU beds are in use throughout the state, which leaves 2/3 open. But in Region 8, it seems like we have a high census in the ICU beds. In reaching out to Dennis, I had asked him for a breakdown by hospital, and he indicated he didn't have that information, that he gets his information from the state. So I reached out to our locals, and they indicated to me, this is Elmhurst Edwards, Mary Lou Mastro indicated to me that they had the capacity they were showing in the region was available in one hospital. And they had the ability, their census has actually gone down, and they have the ability to handle cases and even a surge should there be one. So my question is, are the numbers that they're giving us from the state accurate on our locals? Because for some reason they don't seem to be, based on what I'm hearing from our hospitals directly.
So I think the information that's being reported by IDPH regarding hospital capacity is accurate because it is being reported by the different hospitals. I don't know about the time lag of that information that's being reported. And there also is the issue of pre-COVID capacity versus what the hospitals have developed and surged up to. So all of those factors, I would say that no one is sharing bad information. What we're trying to do on a daily basis is to understand the information so that we can make the most accurate and best decisions for DuPage County residents.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Hart, and followed by Member Tornatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to echo everyone who has spoken so far, Karen, thank you so much for you and your team at this time. Your responsiveness has been incredible. And is in good times and in bad, but especially important now. The question I have is regarding the reporting coming from the state specific to unincorporated areas. I know we have that dashboard on the DuPage County Health Department website in partnership with GIS that, from my perspective, has been a very big success. I've gotten a lot of compliments from residents who like that aspect of the county's website. But I noticed that unincorporated cases aren't reflected on that dashboard. I'm assuming that's because of the lack of available information from the state. Knowing what you know about the data, would that type of reporting down to the unincorporated community be possible? Just figured I'd raise that on this call.
Right. So unincorporated residents are included in the municipality that their zip code is associated with. So they are they're included in the counts. And for the purposes of looking at the prevalence of disease burden across the county, that level of understanding makes sense to us. It is interesting because, people are looking for any way to carve out the numbers from there. And maybe it's all those people in the long-term care facilities, or maybe it's those people who are in that unincorporated neighborhood, which are really adding to the burden of cases within our community. And I think instead it speaks to the widespread and agnostic nature of this virus, that it's going to be everywhere, and that every community will be impacted. So we are not, long answers, so we are not looking to break it down into the unincorporated areas. Seeing that is not a necessary step for our purposes of understanding the disease spread and how we need to impact that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Member Sam Tornatore, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Karen, for all you do and all the members of the Health Department. I was going to ask this question on Thursday at our Board of Health meeting, but I know people are watching, and I've had this question asked of me by a number of people. And I know that we didn't set up the percentage that the governor did in going from phase 2 to phase 3, that being the less than 20% positivity rate. But we get to that positivity rate, as I understand it, by taking the number of people who test positive over the number of people who are tested. My quarrel with that, and my question to you or Dr. Chug, is that it appears to me that the denominator in that fraction is a little skewed, because most of the people who are going to be tested are either sick or think that they're going to be sick. So obviously the percentage is going to be higher when the people that you're testing fall in that category. And it would seem to me that a better determination of how this disease has affected our community would be to take the number of people who test positive over a random sampling of the entire community. I know we can't test 960,000 people, but we could do random sampling, presumably like we would do it in politics and taking a poll. And the community in general is what we're looking at. So it just seems to reason that it's kind of like determining who's an alcoholic by taking an interview in the parking lot at Binny's. I mean, the reality is that people there, the people that are being tested right now are very likely, at least 1 in 5, appear to be likely to be testing positive. So to Dr. Chug, has there been any discussion, and to you, Karen, as well, about maybe trying to get to that percentage in a more accurate way by looking at the entire community as opposed to just those people who are going in for tests who are either sick or think they're sick?
So as Dr. Chug is having difficulty with her audio, I'd like to assure you that her texting capacity is up to par, and she has informed me that what you are describing, Member Tornatore, is actually case infection rate for the community. It's a very good thought. Probably would be an underestimate, but I think your point, your general point, is valid and kind of gets back to what Member Zay was indicating, as well as Member DeCiani, that there would be benefit in having broader access to people to get tested for the presence of the virus, because that will help us better understand. Is it the most important thing we can do right now? Is it the highest level of priority? That I'm not sure of, but is it something important that we need to do as we move in the next weeks, months, potentially years of this? And absolutely that is.
Thank you.
Anyone else seeking recognition? Anyone else have a question for Karen? Okay, Karen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our chairman's report. We move on to the order of business entitled Public Comment. As you know, we have transitioned to a methodology here that invites members of the public to share their thoughts via email. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to our trustee, Assistant State's Attorney, Connor McCarthy. Please proceed.
There are several public comments today. First public comment is from Mary Kate Jilek, Jilek. It's about the Small Business Grant Program. She says this would be such an amazing grant for small business owners like ourselves. We need all the help we can get. Thank you. That concludes her comment. Second comment is from Michael Kurtz of Lyle. It's regarding the $7 million stimulus program. His comment states, if Dupage stimulus program in any way, shape, or form causes Dupage taxes or any other taxes to be raised, then I am fully opposed. Congress approved an emergency stimulus package which must be funded by all taxpayers, including Dupage residents, and I am not interested in paying additional Dupage taxes to fund yet another stimulus package. That concludes his comment. Gina Knott, Knott, of Woodridge, writes regarding the stimulus program. Good morning. My name is Gina Knott, and I own Gina Marie Hair Design at 35207 Bridges Drive, Woodridge, Illinois, Suite 111. I was denied assistance to the payroll protection program due to not accepting any more applications because the money was gone, and denied assistance through the disaster relief loan program. I have been, quote, locked out, close quote, of my business and livelihood since March 2020. My rent and expenses have continued to accrue, and I have no ability to earn money to pay. I have been an independent sole proprietor salon owner for over 25 years. My husband and I have 3 fine young college students. Our family depends upon both our jobs. I was excited to move my business from Will County to Dupage nearly 8 years ago. I thank the county commissioners for recognizing the hardworking segment of business owners in this county that have not been able to receive assistance from the federal programs that have been designed to help most small businesses. I am hopeful that the commissioners would look favorably upon a program that would help the county's small businesses, particularly the sole proprietors without 941 documents. Thank you for your diligence. That concludes her comment. There's a comment from Marie Hasse, Hasse, also of Lyle. It's regarding grant money. She's happy. Her comment states she's happy to receive to see this topic on our agenda and support the small businesses during these unprecedented times. She knows many small businesses that were not able to secure funds during the initial funding. For transparency's sake, she hopes there's public discussion of what makes a business qualify for the grant. That concludes her comment. Next comment is from Karen Lalagos, Lalagos of Addison. It's in response to Governor Pritzker's opening of Illinois. Her comment states, I would like to request the Dupage County please draft and finalize a faster plan to open Dupage outside of Governor Pritzker's plan. J.B. Pritzker has overstepped his emergency powers. The original shutdown was to, quote, flatten the curve, close quote. He recently stated that Illinois will be on lockdown until the virus is eradicated. His, quote, restore Illinois plan, close quote, says we have to wait 28 days of decreasing numbers. This is double the federal guidelines that every other state is following. We have constitutional rights that he is ignoring and ruining lives. People are not getting proper health care for non-COVID coronavirus-related illness. People have lost their jobs and businesses. Children are lacking vaccination and learning opportunities. Our rights to assemble is limited to 10 people, regardless of how much space is available. The coronavirus death numbers are inflated due to incentives hospitals are receiving for these cases. Studies have shown that the coronavirus is far less lethal than they originally believed. Over half of coronavirus deaths have been in long-term care facilities. Parenthetically, can we make a plan that involves protecting our elder population and open safely? Close parentheses. Based upon the numbers we have today, this is tyrannical behavior. He arbitrarily marks businesses as essential and non-essential instead of considering what can be done safely. Our state was in fiscal ruin before the coronavirus, and instead of making an action plan to start fixing this, he is holding us hostage and trying to make our state in worse shape to convince the federal government for a bailout while ruining lives. His executive orders are not laws, and he will not convene the government to have the lawmakers have their say. What he's doing is criminal. Please do not allow the Dupage County residents to have their constitutional rights denied. That concludes her comment. There's a comment from Jessica Ritter of Addison that is word for word. I believe it begins the same way, but it states, to whom it may concern, I would like to request that that DuPage County please draft and finalize a faster plan to reopen DuPage outside of Governor Pritzker's plan. J.B. Pritzker has overstepped his emergency powers. The original shutdown was to flatten the curve. He recently stated that Illinois will be on lockdown until the virus is eradicated. His, quote, restore Illinois plan, close quote, says we have to wait 28 days of decreasing numbers. This is double the federal guidelines for every other state. We have constitutional rights that he is ignoring and ruining lives. People are not getting their proper health care for non-coronavirus related illnesses. People have lost their jobs and businesses. Children are lacking vaccinations and learning opportunities. Our right to assemble is limited to 10 people regardless of how much space is available. With fear of having to stay in outhouses is decreasing the immune system when we are NOTH, N-O-T-H, exposed to environment. Our natural flora that keeps us healthy is decreasing. The fear that the media had pushed upon us is outrageous. I do believe that the stay-home order was necessary, but it does not need to be as strict since the curve has been flattened. The coronavirus death numbers are inflated due to the incentives hospitals are receiving for these cases. Studies have shown that coronavirus is far less lethal than they originally believed. Over half of coronavirus deaths have been in long-term care facilities. Parentheses, can we make a plan that involves protecting our elder population and open safely? Close parentheses. Based upon the numbers we have today, this is tyrannical behavior. He arbitrarily marks businesses as non-essential and essential instead of considering what can be done safely. Our state was in fiscal ruin before the coronavirus, and instead of making an action plan to start fixing this, he is holding us hostage and trying to make our state in worse shape to convince the federal government for a bailout while ruining lives. His executive orders are not laws, and he will not convene the government to have lawmakers have their say. What he's doing is criminal. Please don't allow the DuPage County residents to have their constitutional rights denied. This whole situation is unbelievable. Once it gets warm out, you will not be able to keep people in their houses. It's better to voice that it is okay to open, but we should all continue to wash our hands and wear masks where necessary. People are going to do what they want regardless. If people want to continue to stay in their houses, that's fine. But for the rest of us who want to return to a somewhat normal life, we should be able to. Local businesses need our help, and the only way to do that is to let them open without fear of getting fined or thrown in jail. That concludes Ms. Ritter's remarks. Further comment comes from Michael Baer, B-A-E-R, of Warrenville, Illinois. His comment states, I am a small business owner in DuPage County. I have been in the trades for over 20 years and have owned my own remodeling company for 12 years. People need to get back to work. My industry is struggling and no one wants us to be in their homes right now doing projects out of fear. Most people would, quote, feel much safer, close quote, if the government would just say it's okay to go back to normal. Given the statistics and data on your own website, I believe we need to reopen our county. Your data says as of May 9th, 2020, that the 736 residents in DuPage County, 193 COVID-19 deaths and 3,663 cases. 73% of those deaths were in long-term care facilities. 27% were not in long-term healthcare facilities. Of the 193 deaths, 92.2 had underlying medical conditions. Of the 7.8%, there were no, emphasis, known underlying conditions. This 7.8% makes up 15 total people. 5 were over 70 years old and several were 80 years old. 3 exclamation points, all in caps for emphasis. I am deeply saddened by any deaths, but I urge you that it is time that we reopen the county. It seems like we have a greater chance to get hit by a car than actually dying from COVID-19. Thank you. That concludes Mr. Baer's remarks. Next comment is from Rita Kropelewski, Kropelewski of Addison. It states, DuPage County needs a faster plan to reopen DuPage outside of Governor Pritzker's plan. J.B. Pritzker has overstepped his emergency powers. He's running roughshod over our constitutional rights. The original shutdown was to, quote, flatten a curve, close quote. He recently stated that Illinois will be on lockdown until the virus is, quote, eradicated, close quote. His, quote, restore Illinois plan, close quote, says we have to wait 28 days of decreasing numbers. This is double the federal guidelines that every other state is following. We have constitutional rights that he is ignoring and ruining lives. People are not getting the proper health care for non-coronavirus related illnesses. People have lost their jobs and businesses. Children are lacking vaccinations and learning opportunities. Our right to assemble is limited to 10 people, regardless of how much space is available. The coronavirus death numbers are inflated due to the incentives hospitals are receiving for these cases. Studies have shown that the coronavirus is far less lethal than they originally believed. Over half of coronavirus deaths have been in long-term care facilities. Based upon the numbers we have today, this is tyrannical behavior. He arbitrarily marks businesses as essential and non-essential instead of considering what can be done safely. Our state was in financial ruin before the coronavirus, and instead of making an action plan to start fixing this, he is holding us hostage and trying to make our state in worse shape to convince the federal government for a bailout while ruining lives. His executive orders are not laws, and he will not convene the government to have the lawmakers have their say. What he's doing is criminal. Please do not allow the Dupage County residents to have their constitutional rights denied. That concludes her remark. Next comment is from Paul Burke, B-U-R-K-E, of Wheaton. His subject is church exemption from governor phases. This comment states that he is urging respectfully that the Dupage County Board challenge the current plan to require church attendance above 50 congregants till entering phase 5. As Indiana governor stated, the typical church-going, God-fearing citizen is among the most conscientious and responsible member of our citizenry, hurtful in many ways to well-being and the sense of wholeness to protract this mandatory absence. Thank you for hearing his plea. That concludes his remarks. Next comments from Christopher Gould, G-O-U-L-D, of Wheaton. I guess it says, I guess he phrases this in an unusual way. It says, whereas the elected officials have taken a hands-off, non-confrontational approach to extending the governor's executive order shutdown, and whereas Dupage County continues to outpace the requirements to open up, therefore the Dupage County Board should loudly and aggressively inform the governor that Dupage demands to open up instead of waiting for Chicago and Cook County. The mayor of Elmhurst did this, and Chicago should follow suit. That concludes his comment. Next comment is from Carol Davis with regards to extending the state of emergency in Dupage County. Ms. Davis states, as a lifelong resident of Dupage County, I'm strongly against any move to extend the state of emergency in Dupage County. States, counties, and villages across the country are proving they can reopen safely. We must stop killing our businesses. Every day a business is forced to keep the door locked is one day closer to bankruptcy and financial ruin for business owners and families. The governor and our local officials and government workers are not feeling the pain and suffering of the average American. Government workers are still getting a full paycheck. Many of those who have been laid off or furloughed from work have been unable to get any unemployment compensation due to Illinois' dysfunctional IDES system. There are parents in Dupage County who cannot feed their family and are at risk of losing their homes. We are mature adults. Stop treating tax-paying citizens like children. We know how to take care of ourselves and others in our communities. Additionally, counties throughout Illinois are beginning to reopen in spite of Governor Pritzker's parenthetically completely illegal, all in caps for emphasis, close parentheses, edicts. Citizens of Dupage will simply take their shopping dollars and their county sales tax money to a neighboring county and spend it there. This will put Dupage in even worse financial straits. All in caps, no extension, reopen Dupage. That concludes her remarks. Next comment is from Jan Shaw of Wheaton. Her comment states, I am not a lawyer, nor do I identify as one, but I can read English and so can you. I see the Dupage County Board is plans to extend the Dupage State of Emergency Declaration to May 30th. Please do not, emphasize not, do that. The only disaster I see is being caused by the, quote, cure, close quote. We have been told to shelter at home. Schools have been ordered closed and many businesses forced to shut their doors or change the way they do business to reduce the COVID spread, at first for 2 weeks, then 4, now months, perhaps years. How long can we expect to live this way? How long can we expect children to play alone and not give grandma a hug? How long can adults go without working, not providing for their family? We were told the shutdown was temporary and it was to ensure COVID patients would not overwhelm the healthcare system. Were Dupage hospitals or doctors ever overwhelmed? What purpose does a continued shutdown serve now? What damage is being done? Is it legal? By the last week of April, President Trump was calling for states to reopen. His emergency declaration is no longer recommending anything remain closed, but he says it's up to the states. The governor's authority to declare a disaster area and execute emergency powers only lasts for 30 days. After that, the state legislature must act. He first declared it on March 9th. His 30 days were up April 8th. Furthermore, only the Department of Health can quarantine someone or close a business for health reasons. Governor Pritzker's orders to shut non-essential businesses never had the weight of law behind it. Shutting churches and other religious institutions is a clear violation of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Who will hold him accountable? We do not give up our constitutional rights just because a governor or a county declares an emergency. It's time to let Dupage County declaration expire. It's time to let Dupage residents decide for themselves how much risk they are willing to accept. And as our local government, we ask that you hold our state government in check. This federal law may apply to the current situation. Section 242 of Title 18 makes it a crime for a person acting under color of law to willfully deprive a person of a right or privilege protected by the Constitution or the laws of the United States. Quote, for the purpose of Section 242, acts under, quote, color of law, close quote, include acts not only done by federal, state, or local officials within their lawful authority, but also acts done beyond the bounds of that official's lawful authority. And if the acts are done while the official is purporting to or pretending to act in performance of his or her duties, persons acting under color of law within the meaning of the statute include police officers, prison guards, other law enforcement officials, as well as judges, healthcare providers, and public health facilities, and others who are acting as public officials. It is not necessary that the crime be motivated by animus towards the race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, or national origin of the victim. The, quote, offense is punishable by a range of imprisonment up to a life term or the death penalty, depending on the circumstances of the crime and the resulting injury, if any. That concludes Ms. Shaw's remarks. That's all the public comment we have for today.
Okay, thank you very much, Connor. You did a fine job with that. We move on to the order of business entitled Consent.
So move.
Second.
And a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
Sorry, aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Doesn't seem to be his camera.
Larsson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. Krajewski.
Aye.
Okay, so the consent items are approved. I do recall, I think Jim Healy needs to be on the roll call, right?
I said aye.
Okay. Okay. So so Adam, the clerk, took good care of you, Member Healy.
Thank you very much, Adam and Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Going with the full
It's me, the guy with the goatee now.
Yeah, right.
That must be what's making you a problem there, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I didn't recognize you at first. On to the order of County Board, Member Jim Zay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I have a few appointments today. I move on CBR 345-20, the appointment of Corey Atkinson as Supervisor of Assessments.
Second.
An emotion.
Chairman, I will not be participating in this item.
Okay, let the record reflect that Member Elliott will not be participating. Are there any questions? Anyone seeking recognition? Seeing none, hearing none. There's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott. Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larson. Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore.
Aye.
Okay. 17 voting aye, 1 not voting. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move on CBR 350-20 to extend the state of emergency in DuPage County.
Second.
And a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
He said aye.
Aye. Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larsson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Chowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Zay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on CBR 351-20, extending the suspension of certain county board rules.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave. Leave is granted. Okay, thank you, Member Jim Zay. A fine report. On to the order of finance, Member Bob Larsson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, under Chairman's remarks, I want to thank the entire board, the committee. We had a great discussion this morning on a very important program that we're going to be starting today, which is to help our small businesses here in DuPage County. We had some amendments proposed that will make it even stronger. We will continue to pursue that. I also want to thank the staff. They gave a tremendous presentation this morning on all of the current status of the finances and the programs that we're looking at going forward. And I think we are all committed to a careful and thoughtful way of expending the money that was provided to us by the federal government so that we can provide as much help as possible to the people of DuPage County in a responsible and thoughtful way. And I think today was a great start to that. I mentioned in finance this morning as well that we got some great news from the Fitch rating agency that unlike many units of government throughout the country, they are evaluating almost all of them nationwide, and they chose not to amend our rating for DuPage County because of the strong decisions that we have made and continue to make and the efforts we are putting in place to make sure our finances are being handled responsibly. They have left our financial rating alone, which is great. It's way higher than what the state is right now. So I'm proud of the work of this board and our finance committee and the staff in maintaining that. And then, so with that said, Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of FIR 34120, acceptance of the DuPage County Community Development Commission agreement in the amount of $490,215.
Second. Second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Larsson. Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Chowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The resolution is adopted. On to the next item, Mr. Larsson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of FIR 33920, acceptance appropriation additional funding for the
Second most favorable roll.
services for housing grant.
Leave is granted. Member Larsson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Approval of FIR 34620, additional appropriation for the county infrastructure fund in the amount of
Second most favorable roll.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Approval of FIR 34820, placing names on payroll.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Approval of the FIR 35520, or 35320, I'm sorry, budget transfers for various companies in the county.
Second most
Second
favorable.
most favorable
Leave.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of FIR 35520, authorizing a memorandum of understanding with AFSCME.
roll. Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then move approval of FIR 35420, creation of an appropriation coronavirus relief fund company 1100 accounting
Second most favorable roll.
$161,42,598.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then move approval of FIR 35620, allocation of $7 million to the DuPage County COVID-19 small
Second.
Most favorable roll.
Leave.
Been a motion and a second request for leave. Member Desart is seeking recognition. Member Desart.
Hi, and I just wanted to make a comment that I really appreciate the lively conversation we had on this topic during the finance committee. It was a robust and very respectful conversation. I just wanted to reiterate what I said during that conversation, and that I firmly agree with this, and I think the $7 million is really going to help some small businesses go from, going through the storm or shuttering their doors forever. So I appreciate this. I just wish it was higher. I wish it was $20 or $25 million. But again, I appreciate the conversation we had earlier, and hopefully we can do a phase 2 and increase the small business relief fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Member Dessart. Mr. Larsson, Member Larsson seeking recognition.
I should just clarify two things. One, we sort of took a sense of the committee regarding the potential for funding this further going forward, and the unanimous sense of the Finance Committee was that we would look to finance this further depending upon the need that is seen in the community as this is rolled out. But out of respect for what we were told by Choose Dupage and their ability to manage the program initially, we want to authorize the funds as currently requested. I also wanted to clarify that we are approving this as amended in Finance Committee. There were some amendments that were submitted and approved at Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else seeking recognition? Seeing none, hearing none, there has been a motion and a second to approve as amended. There was also a request for leave, and that leave is granted. Member Larsson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then move approval of FIR 35720, approval of agreement with Choose Dupage to administer the Dupage COVID-19 small business relief.
Second, most favorable.
As amended in the Finance Committee.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of FIR 35820, ratification of an emergency procurement.
Second, most favorable.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finally, I would move approval of FIP 14320, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order to Mesirow Insurance Services for commercial property and liability insurance.
Second, most favorable.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Larsson. A fine report. On to the Order of Health and Human Services, Member Pete DeCiani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to give a shout out to our care center and staff, Janelle Chadwick, who's doing a great job at protecting our most vulnerable across the streets. We are still today COVID-free, and I think that's pretty impressive given the nursing homes and throughout the state. Janelle's done a great job taking temperatures 3 to 4 times a day of all of our employees, and really running a tight ship over there. So, and I think all the nurses, CNAs, all the people in that building are great people doing a great job. I also want to thank the board for approving the agreement that we are approving for the labor across the street. We approved that in finance earlier. I think we're giving some COVID initiatives there to help out those workers and reward them for working in these tough times as well too. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to combine items 1, 2, and 3 on the consent agenda, please.
There's been a motion and a second to combine these items under the sub category of consent. Items 1, 2, and 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on item 2020-100, a recommendation for contract purchase order for 10 Microsoft computers, Surface Pro keypads, trackpads on the amount of $24,378.65. I move on item 2020-101, recommendation for a contract approval for Prexar distribution, the amount of $15,000 per lowest responsible bid. For oxygen, I move on item 2020-102, recommendation for a contract purchase order to Medline, the amount of $17,000 for our care center.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second on these combined items. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larsson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Dessart.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. DeCiani.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to combine items B through J, all various contracts for care center.
Okay, there's been a motion to combine B through J. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on item HHR.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
To start, are you seeking recognition?
I am, just for transparency, because it wasn't here in the agenda. For item I, the medical oxygen supply equipment, total contract of $173,400. $192 per the board. That wasn't here on the agenda. So just for transparency, I wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Please
member.
proceed, Member DeCiani.
Thank you, Chairman. I move on item HHSR 0340-20, resolution for community development block grant for the care center in the amount of $90,215. I move on HHSR 0349-20, approval of substantial amendment 2 to the Dupage County Consolidation Plan, adding a total of $1,031,548 in emergency grant solutions for COVID-related issues for CARES. Move on HHSP 0135-20, recommendation for contract purchase order with the professional medical supply to furnish incontinent products for our care center, not to exceed $47,000. I move on HHSP 0136-20, recommendation for approval, contract purchase order for Interborough Packaging Corporation, the amount of $70,000 per lowest responsible bid. It's a renewal. I move on item HHSP 0137-20, recommendation for approval, contract purchase order to Medline for our care center in the amount of $75,000. I move on item HHSP 0138-20, recommendation for approval, contract purchase order for Mckesson Medical Surgical Supply in the amount of $115,000 for our care center. Move on HHSP 0139-20, recommendation for contract purchase order for Prescription Supply Incorporated in the amount of $170,000 for our in-house closed shop pharmacy at the care center. Move on HHSP 0140-20, recommendation to Airgas USA for liquid oxygen. And lastly, I move on item HHSP 0141-20, recommendation to Amherst-Sourceburger Drug Corporation in the amount of for purchase of pharmaceuticals for the inpatient and outpatient pharmacy at the care center through June 24, 2020 for contract not to exceed $2,400,000 per renewal option under bid 18-109. It's the second of 3 optional one-year renewals. Thank you.
Most favorable.
Leave. There's been a motion, a second request for leave. Leave is granted. Thank you, Member DeCiani. On to the order of judicial, public safety, Member Grant Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to receive and place on file the Public Defender's March 2020 statistical report.
Second.
Okay, been a motion and a second. Member Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aye.
Elliott.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Member Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move approval of JPS 144-20, ratification of emergency procurement, the Advent Systems, Inc. for the procurement of CCTV security system.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Member Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of JPS C0-11-20, amendment to the Logic Callous contract to provide Office 365 for the Circuit Court Clerk.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Eckhoff. A fine report. On to the order of Public Works. Member Jim Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to combine and approve item A consent items 1 through 5. 6.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those nay. Ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed.
2020. Item 1 is 2020-96, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to GE Intelligent Platforms. Item 2 is 2020-97, recommendation for approval of a contract to LAI Limited for the purchase of 328 Tide Flex mixing nozzles. Item 3 is 2020-98, recommendation for approval of a contract to PPG Architectural Finishes. Item 4 is 2020-99, recommendation for approval of a contract to Peregrine Services. Item 5 is a contract extension to June 30th, 2020 for necessary to complete the replacement of the boiler controls. And item 6 is payment of claims for public works and facilities management.
Okay, is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larsson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Kowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Okay, resolutions are adopted. Mr. Healy.
Chairman, I move to combine and approve items B, C, and D.
A motion and a second to combine these items. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please
Thank you,
proceed.
Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of item B, which is FMP 13320, recommendation for approval of a contract to Groot Inc. to provide refuse disposal. Item C is PWP 13220, recommendation for approval of a contract to Stuart Tank Sales Corp. for the purchase of a tank trailer. And item D is PWP 13420, recommendation for approval of a contract issued to Payments Corporation to provide electronic bill presentment and payment.
Second most favorable.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Mr. Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On to the order of stormwater, member Jim Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on SMR 34220, intergovernmental agreement with Dupage County and the Village of Clarendon Hills for the amount of $90,000.
Second.
A motion and a second. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart. DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on SMP 14220, approval of contract issued to Excella for permitting tracking software.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Jim Zay.
Thank
Fine
you,
report. On to the order of technology, member Greg Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. By way of brief committee update, I just want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for mentioning the virtual memorial wall in your chairman's remarks today. I'm really proud of our own Dave Roberts, who is a vet himself and who came up with the idea. So thank you to him, and thank you to Don Carlson, Wendy, and the rest of the IT staff for making it happen. With that, I'll move on to item 1. I move on 2020-104, procurement to Great American Networks Conferencing LLC for audio conference.
Second.
A motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
Aye.
Resolution is adopted. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on 2020-105, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Alpha Graphics to furnish and deliver web to print business cards for county departments.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Member Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on 2020-109, recommendation for the approval of a contract to CWG to upgrade FireEye security software licensing for increased bandwidth hardware.
Most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lastly, I move on TEP 147-20, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Alchemy Technology Group LLC.
Second most favorable role.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Hart. A fine report. Under the order of transportation, Member Don Pachowski.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Under the consent agenda, I would like to combine and approve items A1, 2, and 3.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve 2020-106, a contract to A Block Marketing, Inc. for wood chips for a period of May 13th through May 12th for an amount of $7,500 per low quote. Move to approve 2020-107, contract to Midwest Compost LLC for wood chips and log disposal services for a contract not to exceed $7,500. And move to approve 2020-18, a contract to Chicago Parts and Sound LLC for automotive batteries in a contract total not to exceed $21,992.09.
Second.
And a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplain.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Aye.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott. Hart.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Krajewski.
Aye.
Larsson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Resolutions are adopted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve DTR 33720, a contract to Martin Construction for culvert replacement for the total amount of $992,922.20, which was low bid.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Member Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 14520, a contract to Freeway Ford Sterling truck sale for truck and replacement parts. It's the third of a final option.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Member Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 14620, contract to BCR Automotive Group LLC for Ford Motorcraft repair and replacement parts for an amount not to exceed $70,000, which is the lowest responsible bid.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted.
And lastly, Mr. Chairman, move to approve amendment DTR 161A-19, amendment to a local public agency agreement between the county and the Illinois Department of Transportation.
Second most favorable roll.
Leave.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Mr. Pachowski. A fine report. That concludes all our committee reports. We move on to the next item of business entitled New Business. New Business. Anyone seeking recognition on the order of new business? Did I see Member Salmon raising her hand there?
Yeah, but for old business, which was first.
Oh, okay. It does occur to me that I could raise my hand and I could do like a virtual high five with Member Rutledge here. See? Try that. On the other side.
They all came in different orders, so.
Yeah. On the order of new business, anyone seeking recognition? Anyone else? Member Pachowski?
Old business.
This is new business. I don't know what the heck did I miss old business?
Yes.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry about that. So, yeah, we'll go new. We'll go from the future to the past.
Right.
So, nobody wants recognition on new business?
I do.
Well, you know what? Why don't I go back to the old? I'm sorry. Forgive me. Forgive me. So, with leave of the body, we'll go back to the order of old business, which I inadvertently passed over. Anyone seeking recognition of their order of old business? Old business.
Yeah.
Come on. There's
Chairman.
Member Salmon. Forgive me. Please. Sorry.
Would you mind if I share my screen real quickly so we could talk about giving Dupage days?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
I would not mind.
Oh, well, it's disabled, so never mind. That's okay.
Oh, no. Here. No, Wendy's working on it.
Oh, wait, she's letting me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So I just wanted to briefly remind everyone we have 2 business days left for Giving Dupage days. If you haven't seen the page yet, you've missed this adorable little guy's face. I want to make sure you see the URL is givingdupagedays.org. And we are so very close to our goal. So if you haven't had a chance to go give yet, give a couple dollars to your favorite organization. You can support Giving Dupage directly. I hope you all feel very proud of what Dupage County has done in this last month. To have raised this much money during these crazy economic times, I think is incredibly impressive, and we should all be really proud. Thank you, Chairman.
Very nice.
Yes, we
Glad you
shared
brought that up. Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion on this item or another item under old business? Mr. Larsson.
I was just going to suggest that anybody who has not done so yet also share that link on their social media to generate additional views of it.
Good idea. Okay. Anyone else on the order of old business? Seeing none, hearing none, we move to the item of business entitled New Business. Anyone else? Mr. Pachowski.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, in your comments today as chairman, you thanked our workers on the front lines. Karen Ayala mentioned getting tested. President Trump gets tested every day. And with the money we got, we should be getting these oral self swabs that we could give to our employees. Rather than taking somebody's temperature, they can just do a swab and know if they've been tested or not. So I'm hoping that we could look at that. They had a commercial for it or something on the news, and it really beats going to a facility. They could do it themselves in their own home. So hopefully these oral self-administered swabs will save a lot of people's lives and time.
Well, I mean, it would be ideal if we could send out these self-administered tests via the mail or, Amazon or UPS, and have them back. And it's a big logistical undertaking, and it's a big resource allocation. But we have been talking about it. Yeah, the whole testing thing has been a real big challenge all the way around. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of new business? Member Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's appropriate to mention this week, May 10th through the 16th of 2020, is National Police Week. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15 as National Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the calendar week in which May 15 falls as National Police Week. President Ronald Reagan said it best in a speech he gave on May 17, 1988, during National Police Week, and I quote, "There can be no more noble vocation than the protection of one's fellow citizens. Police Week, and in particular Police Officers Memorial Day, affords each one of us the yearly opportunity to reflect upon the countless contributions made by our nation's police officers. No single group is more fully committed to the well-being of their fellow Americans and to the faithful discharge of duty than our law enforcement personnel. Danger is a routine part of their job, and all too often we lose one of these valiant men and women to the sickness that is crime. What better time to show our deep appreciation for their selfless devotion than during Police Week?" End of quote. God bless the brave men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Noonan. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of new business? Anyone else? Anyone? Oh, there's Member DeCiani. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to bring up two things. One, kudos to to our county and our health department cooperating with our PSAPs and our first responders. I heard from a neighbor to the east of us, Mayor Tamburino. I know you represented Joe back when you were a state senator, Chairman, and they had a situation because they're not communicating where a COVID response, which was not aware it was COVID, 3 police officers were exposed to a patient who was having a heart attack, and they ran in right away and tried to save the guy, and all 3 officers, because they didn't, it was a positive confirmed case of COVID. He was being recovered in his own home. These 3 police officers who were doing their job but not aware of the situation, unfortunately, were exposed. So Mayor called me up and said, "Hey, you guys got your act together. You're communicating. I wish our county was in a better situation." So I think those are positive things that we're doing it in a protective way. It's HIPAA protective, but it's leadership and it's working together. So the other thing I wanted to mention is when you have significant challenges, whether it's opioids or financial issues, and now we have COVID, we've always had a task force, and I recommend with your leadership potentially putting together a task force, a bipartisan task force, including some of our county board members. That I know I'd be willing to sit on that. Member Tornatori, our business, Tim Elliott, our chairman of our economic development. But I want to see more of our policy coming from the electeds, rather than coming just from staff. Although staff's doing a great job, I think these times are very significant, and this is not going away anytime soon. And again, with your leadership, I would think this would be something that would be important. I know we've done it with the heroin task force, and Member Hart shares that. Again, we could have electeds, bipartisan cooperation, even some professionals on that. But I think we really need to have something to kind of help this going forward. And it shouldn't just be coming from one person or staff. It should be coming from a group dedicated to this issue. So again, I would put that in your lap, but you have that executive authority to do this, and I'd be willing to serve, and I'm sure others would be as well too. Again, bipartisan, I think it would be important. Thank you.
Well, we have a board of 18 members, and everybody is participating and encouraged to provide input, and we have a committee structure. And so, I mean, I welcome input from everybody. I've worked with everybody here on some aspect of this COVID. So, yeah, happy to share whatever responsibility and input and policy making. So, yeah, I think this is what we do on the board here. I wouldn't want to take a task force and diminish anybody else's participation. I think 18 is a good number of folks that intentioned, duly elected, capable, smart, talented people. So I would welcome input on policy ideas, and I do, from everybody. So, yeah, I mean, we do have a great staff. I'm really pleased with the work of, we've talked about the health department. I think Nick Kottmeyer has really stepped up to the plate, and really impressed with his commitment and how thorough he is. And so, yeah, I'm pleased. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of new business? New business. Okay. I am reliably informed that we do not have anything to come before us on the order of executive session. And so I will entertain a motion to
So moved.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting to Tuesday, May 26, 2020 at 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Nice to see everybody.
Hi, everyone.